Hey, what's up, guys? Nate here from Protoculture, back again. Another video for Marula Music. This little series of quick tips we're trying to do regularly. It's my studio in South Africa. This weekend, I actually had a little session, which I like to do quite often, with just going through plugins. I try not to clutter my plugin library too much. Stuff that stays has got to be stuff that I'm using often and stuff that I've actually taken the time to learn. That said, there is tons and tons of free plugins out there. So I do quite often download, install a whole bunch of them, and then kind of have these little sessions where I kind of just figure stuff out and decide if I actually like the ones. So this is probably going to be less of a quick tip and more kind of like a little mini review for some of my top 10 free plugins that I've actually kept recently. Well, not recently, some of them are older as well, but I mean, these are my top favorite free plugins. These are all just VST effects, not free instruments. There's tons of other stuff out there. This is by no means a definitive best of. It's just the ones that I kind of tend to use the most. I will add the links to the downloads or the websites for all the plugins covered in the comments below, so you can check that out. We'll just run through them quickly. This is kind of fast becoming like my go-to plugin for. It's the first thing I put on a chain of a new channel now. It's called Track Control from DMG Audio. It is a super handy little plugin to have. What I've done here is I just set the trim down to 18, the gain up. So what I'll do is I'll use this as a way of automating volume. So you can just record in your automation. And then what I'll do is I'll use the track control automation to control the gain from this one so that it's independent of my actual channel. So that when I'm doing a mix down, I don't actually have to automate the Cubase faders. I can just automate. See, the faders will stay the same, but the volume automation is still working. So it's a super handy little tool to have. There's another one. Synalxis has got a thing called FreeG, which I used to use, but I've ditched that one now because this one has a few other handy little things built into it, like the width control. And you also have a high pass filter, which is generally the first thing I do on a channel anyway. So if I'm loading up this to automate gain, it's really handy to have a high pass filter that I can just set to, let's say, 200 or whatever. You have multiple different filters. Generally 24 or 12 will do for me, but it's nice to have. Moving on. This I've been using for a while, and I've talked about this in some tutorials I've done as well for Sonic Academy. This is called Clip Shifter from LVC Audio. It's a really cool little clipper. It works kind of like a limiter, but anything that goes over the threshold is literally cut off. There is a paid version which adds a few other features like MS processing, EQ. You can also change harmonics and things like that. But the free version does the clipping part quite well, and it's got a nice interface that you can actually see exactly what you're cutting off. So you can just drop your threshold down to cut off any peaks in percussion and stuff that you don't like. Let's see it. I would just be careful with this because when you are using clippers, you are introducing digital distortion generally, which can be quite unmusical. So it's not like a nice tube distortion or something like that. It's quite unpleasant. But anyway, super handy tool for controlling peaks. I use this quite a bit now these days just for making sure that I'm not getting too many transients through on some of the drum tracks and things, especially if there's like using things like envelope shapers and stuff like that. I like to just have one of these just to tame any peaks that might jump through. The next one's an EQ that I've just tried recently, actually, which I really liked. So this is Ignite Amps PT-EQX, and is based on a Pultec series equalizer. So just like the originals, you have the high and low section, which is the this over here. Then you have the MQ5, which is the mid-range equalizer, which was a separate module. And what they've added, which wasn't in the original, is this HL3C filter, which is basically a high cut and a low cut filter. Now, I have tried a few other various emulations. I can't speak for how close this is to an actual Pultec because I don't own one. But I have tried out a few of the other ones, like the Waves Pultec, and this one actually holds up alright. It's not a bad sounding EQ at all. It's quite subtle in places, and I really enjoy this. Plus, I'm a big fan of these kind of program equalizers. I find often when you've got too many options, you know, sometimes you just want to be able to grab a knob and just try something, and like, okay, this needs to be brighter. Let's just, turn it, make it brighter, rather than setting up a complex high shelf with all sorts of notch filters and things like that, like you would maybe in a more surgical EQ like Pro Q2 or something. I kind of like these program equalizers, just simple to mix with, So boost, attenuation, simple. I mean, if you've worked with any of these sort of vintage modulation emulations before, it'll all be quite familiar. Your filters. The highs are fairly smooth for an EQ that's free. I quite enjoyed it. It's a little bit different to use as opposed to sort of more traditional EQ controls, but I enjoyed this. You have oversampling as well. Check this one out. Yeah, free, and I thought this was pretty good. Next up, Tokyo Dawn Records. These guys have got some great free plugins. I'm just going to feature one of them here. They have a compressor, which is fantastic, called the Kotelnikov. Definitely check that one out. They have a EQ called the Slick EQ, which is also pretty good. And then this one, which for a free plugin, it's pretty amazing. It's essentially a multi-band dynamics processor, much like FabFilter's Pro MB. All of their plugins come with a gentleman's edition, which I think are €50 each, very reasonable price. You do get a few extra features. For instance, I think with this one, you get like an expander and a whole bunch of other workflow enhancements and things like that. But so essentially, I'm not going to run through this in too much detail, but essentially you have 4 bands of EQ, high pass, low pass filters. And then each EQ band has a threshold option, which would essentially turn it into a multi-band compressor. So that EQ band can have a compressor attached to it. You have your ratio, attack, release, all the usual controls, and dry mix knob over there, so you can do a bit of parallel compression as well. Each EQ, you can set up shelving, so on and so on. And then also when you go into select mode, if you select your turn these off, you have wideband as well. So if you turn off the thresholds for these ones here, you can have a wideband equalizer, which will basically, you'll see the threshold there, can apply to all 4 bands. This little gain indicator is pretty cool as well for when you're doing your makeup gain. It shows I love the way that it shows your gain reduction, that you can actually just line that up with the middle one and you should be gold. So anyways, definitely check this one out. It's a great little plugin that you can fiddle around with. There's loads of things that you can do with this. Also check out the Gentleman's Edition ones. They've got a few extra features. And the Kotelnikov as well, definitely one to check out. It's a great little compressor. Next up, this one has been around for ages, but I still love this. Camel Crusher. It's quite a brutal little distortion unit. It has a compressor and a filter built into it as well. The compressor is, it's not a normal compressor. It's quite brutal, but it's nice to mix in small amounts. Okay, that is with a mix full up. It's really cool just to capture just a little bit of those transients. And the distortion sounds great as well. Oh, here we go. Anyway, let's turn that volume down. So I think a lot of you will know this one. It's been around for quite a while, but it's definitely worth checking out. Camel Audio's Camel Crusher. Pretty cool little plugin. Next up from Plugin Alliance. I'm a huge fan of Plugin Alliance plugins. I have a number of them. I mix a lot with the BX3 EQ and master with it as well. The Vertigo, the VSC2 is an amazing compressor. They have a bunch of fantastic plugins, some of them available for the UAD platform as well, so that kind of attests to their quality. The subfilter is a section out of the Subsynth plugin, which is the full version. So essentially what it is it's a it's a high-pass resonant filter, which has been specially designed to get around certain problems that you might have with low-frequency stuff. The resonance knob over here will set how sharp the resonance is on the high-pass filter. The tight punch will basically set your frequency for the high-pass filter. So it's kind of like just tuning your bass almost. Then the low end is a bandpass filter, but it's a predefined bandpass filter, which will allow your low end back in again. It's a similar concept to something like R bass from Waves, except this is completely free and it's a great little plugin. Play around with it. You might not be able to hear too well unless you got headphones on, but let's just see. Yeah. You can see as I sweep through the low section how it tightens up the kick. And we'll add the bandpass filter back in again. So definitely check that one out. It's a cool little plugin to have for your low end stuff, sorting out problems, EQing. It's a very simple little EQ that you can use on your bottom end to solve a number of different issues with your bass. Cool. Last four. Here we go. The MJUC Junior. It's a very cool little compressor. They have a paid version, which is €25, which is just so worth it. You should definitely just go and buy it. I like the little free version as well because it's just so super simple. You know, you have a compression amount here. You have your time constants. You can set to fast or slow release. You have your makeup, and that is about it. You can hear how it sounds here. Great little compressor. Loads of guys have been giving the full version fantastic reviews as well. I think they've got 3 different models. With the full version, this one is a mix between 2 of the models. I think it's a kind of loosely based on a Verimu compressor, so kind of like the Manly Verimu or a Fairchild 670, something to that effect. But great sounding little plugin. Definitely check that one out. They've got a few other freebies as well. There's a little drive plugin which is pretty cool as well, tube drive plugin, which is really nice. Next up, this is Dimension Expander from Expo Records. So this was just a little test that they did for one of the effects that are built into Serum's effects rack. So it's just kind of like a little micro reverb plugin with a pre-delay that you can set here. But it's nice to have it like in a super simple little setup like this. You have dry wet knob, you have on and off, and you have size. So I'll just show you what it does. It's probably the best way to explain it. Full wet, and then your distance. I generally don't use that delay up that high, but it is really nice. It's like a little stereo expander kind of thing. And just to push elements back in the mix slightly. Really handy little plugin from Expo Records. You can download that one for free. Or if you have Serum, just use Serum as a effects rack, because you have this, it's not Dimension Expander, it's built into their effects rack. And actually the effects rack in Serum is pretty good, as is definitely like a great idea to just use that whole thing, because some of the effects in there are pretty good. Next up, Valhalla Free-Kick. I love this little plugin. It is a very simple delay, feedback, low cut, high cut filter, but they throw this frequency shifter into the middle of the whole chain. So you can sync your delays here. So now it sounds kind of like a standard delay unit would. It's mono delay and it's in stereo, but it's kind of a mono delay. But you can now shift the frequency up of the delay signal. So pretty cool. This really comes to life with a bit of automation when you actually set the synced free mode and work with really tiny little delays. Yeah, you can get some pretty crazy sounds out of that. It's a really cool little plugin and totally free. Go and download that. Lastly, Frontier from D16, and a little free. It's very similar to that MJUC in controls. You have your threshold and your output, or your makeup gain. You have a setting for fast, medium, slow release, and that is about it. There's a soft clipper you can turn on and off as well. But this is a limiter as opposed to just a compressor. It's way harsher than the MJUC, and but it's got a great sound to it. I really like this one. I'll give you a quick demo of this as well. Super simple to set up. Great little limiter. I really like this one as well. Definitely check this out. Super simple, kind of a no-brainer, but great little sound to it as well. And then lastly, as a bonus, I wanted to just add this one in here as well. This is Vengeance Producer Series Scope. I love this this plugin. It's just as a it's the one sort of metering plugin that I use most. I have been a big fan of BX Digital's meter as well in the past, or the TT dynamic range meter, as a sort of more accurate LUFS meter or RMS meter. But this one does that, but mostly it's the spectrum and the stereo field and the scope that I was mostly interested in with this one. It has a couple of really cool little features as well. Your stereo field. Then your spectrum, you can set it to line, unfreeze it, set it to draw waterfall, rotate. So some really nice little features in here. You have different kind of filters. You've got a histogram, you've got the K12 K12 system, metering system, K14, K20. Your RMS length, input gain, that's rotation, and at any time you can freeze your spectrum as well. The scope is also super handy. You have a couple of options here to turn on male S's or female S's if you're looking for sibilants. They'll actually be highlighted, as you can see here. You can see the transients. Male S's, female. Obviously, that would be more applicable to working with vocals, but these would be hi-hats that are being highlighted here, or stuff that's around the sort of 8K mark. And your transients get highlighted as well in the scope. You have these sync modes where you can actually sync to your project's tempo and time signature. This is technically, it is free, but you would need to have a license for one of Vengeance's other plugins on a dongle, unfortunately. Avenger would not be applicable. You need one that is on a Microsoft dongle or a Cubase dongle. But the other plugins are great, so go and check them out. I use them a lot. You would have seen in other tutorials I've done in the past. I always use a lot of the Vengeance plugins, so definitely they're well worth checking out. Anyways, that's about it for today. Thank you for watching again. If you guys enjoyed, just smash that like button. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube for regular updates. And I hope this guys was useful to you, and I shall see you again soon. Till then, take care. Cheers.